If I can just kickstart the conversation with a general question for all three undersecretaries. This event has been quite a mammoth task for our team at Civic Exchange to put together. But the positive side is we've learned a great deal over the past 3 days, among which I have personally learned that when we say a place is walkable, it really has 3 meanings. The first one is accessibility, which is to get from point A to point B. And I think by all definitions, Hong Kong does a very good job in that because of our mass transit system and because we are small and dense. But the second dimension is that the way you get from point A to point B should be interesting to walk. And by this definition, I think some of my friends would probably say that, for example, Mr. Yao, the pictures you showed earlier of all the elevated footpaths is not very interesting to walk because there's nothing there. And then there's a third dimension, which is it needs to be connected to the community. So for example, if you have a street lined with super luxury stores, but it's located in an average income neighborhood, frequented primarily by tourists, my friends will argue that that doesn't make the place walkable. So if I may first ask each one of you to quickly comment, do you agree with this threefold definition of walkability? And by this measure, do you think Hong Kong is a walkable city?
I think for this moment, maybe I add a 4th dimension. I think another dimension is safety. I think in a lot of places, in a lot of cities, even though you've got a very wide and shaded pathway, but it's not safe to walk. But I think Hong Kong is very safe to walk. You'll notice, I think in Hong Kong, it's very safe to walk no matter it's daytime or nighttime. So that's a very important element for walkability. So talking about the other 3 criteria, I totally agree with those criteria. We need to make the passageway or the walking environment, I think that's the experience, most important. If the walking experience is not good, I think most people would rather take a car, take a bus, instead of walking to a certain stretch, a walking distance. So in Hong Kong, these are the criteria we would like to try to achieve. Like you mentioned about the passageway, we have direct connection. So we need to make the access convenient and directly connected to the destination. So in a planning process, we're trying to at least, one is from their home to the key railway station. That's the distance, the first mile. Every day they need to walk. So we want to make this convenient. And then another one is walking from the railway station to the place of working. So these are the direct access. I totally agree with that. And in the planning process, we'll try to achieve it. And certainly at different stage or the different generation of new town planning or the planning process have different opinion. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I think we need to admit some of the places we receive complaint about lack of vibrancy, lack of interesting features. But we are now gathering with experience accumulated. We will try to implement in the latest generation like Kai-Tech and other new development. We will make it more walking friendly, interesting with shops and shading along the path. So we are doing it. Maybe.
May I add just maybe 2 points to supplement. First, I think from my perspective, functionality is important. That means accessibility. So walking from A to P, you must provide that safe and environment. So in that sense, I think that is primary. Then, of course, the aspiration of the community will change. And people think that walking straight to the station is not that good enough, and you should have some more room to maneuver, to window shopping, to shop, along the way. I agree with this kind of increased aspiration. So if the community is moving to that direction, I think as planner or as our department may try to facilitate that. So this is an add-on thing. but we have to understand what really the community aspire, because there's some debate, when you think that a walkway is make it more enjoyable, what sort of enjoyable you're talking about? What sort of idea? People may have different idea to what it means actually. So the idea, the views of the community is very important. I know, speaking from experience, some local community, they really prefer more functional thing. Of course, some professional may not like that. The architect may not like that. The planner may not like that. But we have to convince, to carry with the community. I think that is more important too.
Well, I think the thing is, I guess I'm more simple. I don't have a problem with the 3 criterias as we think about how to do things better. The truth is, Hong Kong people walk a lot. I was completely overwhelmed by Dr. Seren's research yesterday. In fact, she said that Hong Kong people underreport how much they walk. And the walking in Hong Kong is one thing that keeps Hong Kong people relatively healthy. So I think what you're seeing from my colleagues today is this understanding that walking is the right path ahead. And Eric shared a secret with you, just in case you missed it. He told you that there's a major planning document being put out very shortly, and he told you that walking is all over it. So, and he asked you that since you're all very keen on walking, that you should engage in that process. So I think the sort of things that Maura reminded us on, it's really about, any particular area. How can you fine-tune it, design it in a way that brings personality to a particular area? I think so far a lot of public infrastructure, it's a lot of concrete, it's a lot of standard design, because this is cheaper. Or maybe people would say, no, you don't have to do it that way. There are different ways of doing it so that it could be, suit the personality of an area. And I think Yelmo shared something with you that I know bothers him a lot. Well, I guess it is an issue for all of us in government. On many of these local projects, we have to go to the local community. The local community will express themselves as to what they like and what they don't like. And that will have a final impact on the outcome of plans.
Thank you very much. Then I would just like to ask just one quick question to each of you, and then we'll move on to...
Can you take a question from the audience?
I shall give you an opportunity to speak after I finish mine. Thank you. Mr. Yao, politics is the art of balancing competing or conflicting interests. The Secretary for Housing and Transport Bureau, Anthony Cheung, said that we have to not only readjust the conventional car-based transport policy mindset, but also to encourage our citizens to have a paradigm shift,
Yes.
to opt for less cars and car parks. Do you see a competition between pedestrians and cars? Do you think in order to promote walkability in Hong Kong, it has to be at the expense of cars and car owners?
I think first point is that I think we know that we need to come to another point of balance. The balance has to be shifted more to pedestrians, and how actually we can do it, and at what level we are considering and looking into options. But we have to say that the growth of private car in particular have to be contained, because the length of road growth is far left behind than the car growth. And if the car growth in such a rate of 4 to 5%, our city will be standstill very soon. So we have to contain the car growth to reduce the number, or at least to reduce the growth, such that we can have a better environment for the walkers. So I think we need to do a lot on this front. However, when we try to introduce or suggest some measures to contain car growth, the community is quite noisy, or vocal, or even try to stop it. So we have to convince, we have to, as I suggest in my speech, we have to have some new mindset to convince the car owner to make transport, public transport, more available and accessible, so that they can switch mode of transport. And I think that's the way we do it. We try to do it, and with your help, I hope. So to convince the people to give up the use of a private car. And I think that is more important as not only building infrastructure, but also change the habit.
Yeah, certainly changing behaviors. I'm glad to hear that the government seems to believe that controlling the growth of cars is going to be very important, and hopefully maybe you can use walkability as a reason why it should be taken more seriously. Christine, you have worked for years during your time in Civic Exchange and at the government to reduce air pollution. You've shown us the chart. We've begun to see early results, but we had a question earlier from the audience. Well, but the air is better, but still not good enough. And if we want to promote people to walk when the air is still not good enough, is it irresponsible? What is the biggest challenge to cleaning up the air on the roadside?
Well, I mean, obviously, we have a lot of cars, and they're still pumping out a lot of emissions. And I think people accept that we can't ban cars from more roads. Even if you were to do more pedestrianizations, they could only be done in certain places. So what I'm saying is, pedestrianization as a tool in certain areas has limited function as a direct measure in pollution control. However, it is a traffic management, road planning management to reduce and remove vehicular pollution in a particular area. So all I'm trying to say is our task in terms of improving the overall air quality in Hong Kong has to still be many-faceted. Pedestrianization in limited areas is only one of them.
Right. It seems to imply that perhaps from the government's point of view, you see pedestrianization as one tool among many in the toolbox to achieve the policy objectives. Perhaps some of our participants might have a slightly different view and seem to think that what we're advocating is actually a new urban planning and transport planning strategy where the objective is to serve the pedestrians as opposed to pedestrianization as a means.
Yeah, maybe I supplement a bit. I think while I listen to you about the car versus or the road traffic versus the walkability or walking, in order to promote walkability, I think one most important is we provide an efficient and convenient public transport system that can replace a car. Even from my perspective as a planner, planning the city, we would like to encourage people to walk and to use a public transport because that is more efficient and that is more environmental friendly and will reduce the roadside emission. I think that's one principle. I think no one will dispute about it. So that's why in the urban design or urban planning stage, one of our prime tasks is to arrange or to plan those residential building, commercial building, all those facilities within a very walkable distance from the major backbone. Like in this case, we are talking about railway because railway is the most environmental friendly transportation mode in the urban setting. So we need to make use of those planning to make this convenient and attractive to the residents to make the choice. If they got a convenient access to public transport, then it's very natural for them to give up the car. So I think that's one of the way we need to do is at the planning process, plan for the pedestrian, so that plan for walking, so that they can utilize walking as one of the mode to get access to a public transport system, and let the railway and the buses to serve its function, and that will remove a lot of cars from the roads. So I think the most important is make the public transport system as convenient and accessible to people. So that's the role of the planners in the planning process.
Great. I'm going to open this up to the floor. Marcus, can anybody give him a mic? Yep, he has a mic. No, we cannot.
Barely.
That's on now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you. I'd like to interrupt this polite conversation because I think it's important that you hear our voice, not only what's on the paper. First of all, thank you, all three of you, for coming to speak to the lion's den, so to speak. But there are elements to your presentation, Mr. Ma, that fill me with horror. You seem to look at walkability purely as an engineering problem, as a functional issue. You said nothing in your presentation about the quality of the experience. This is not only about walkability, it's also about strollability, right? The pleasure of walking through a space. When you spoke about the planning for Kai Tak, you talked about overpasses, the same old underground rabbit warrens and so on. Fill me with horror. It makes me shudder. There's no concept in what it means to create a neighborhood. You cannot create neighborhoods, it seems to me, without the street level experience. So for example, elevated walkways, yes, they work in Central, because in Central you also have a street level experience. But they do not work in Wan Chai North, for example, where there is absolutely no street level experience. So they have to be coordinated with the street level walkability. Please, let's look at the quality of the experience and not only the engineering and functional issues.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your comment. And indeed, Mark, you point out clearly is that because of the limitation of time, I only have a very broad view about the walkability and haven't introduced to you about the experience. Because indeed, like the Kai Tak or even in those new town we are planning, like the Kutong North, we plan for the walking experience. We try to put the people back to the street level. And we make use of those building edges for shops, for interesting F&B activities along the garden ring. So indeed, that's an area we learn from the experience, from past experience, and some of the feedback from the public, from the planner and professionals. So please bear with me because I think in the presentation, we only have limited time. If we have time, I can explain to you more about the planning intention of introducing lively vibrancy and walking experience to those people in those new towns like Kai Tak and also in the Kutong North. I can show you the details. We have introduced interesting edges to make the people have a lively experience in walking, not just direct and quick and easy access. I totally agree with your point.
We have encroached upon the next session by 20 minutes already. I think we probably should call it a wrap, but I personally am convinced that there is quite a bit of alignment at the very senior visionary level on walkability. But as KK Ling said to me, he said, we all agree on the vision, we just disagree on how to do it. So let's keep talking and hopefully we can come up with more and more agreement and consensus points. Thank you very much.
Yes, certainly.